Hey everyone, my name is Chelsea. Welcome to Little Mountain Ranch. Welcome to my greenhouse. I'm happy to have you here with me today. There is always something new going on, especially this time of year on a farm. And it's one of the reasons why I love this lifestyle so much, is because each day is different than the day before as far as what we get to do. So an example of that would be the day before yesterday, my friend Sherri came over and taught or began to teach my daughter and I how to spin wool from our Romney sheep. Spinning is something that my daughter and I have been wanting to try for years now. I'm really excited to share some of that with you. As promised, I did film some of it. Sherri was gracious enough to allow me to do that. So we have some footage to share with you, which we will be sharing in this video, and I'm so excited. I will show you, just as a little sneak peek, what we ended up making. So this is some of the yarn that we spun, and I am just so excited about it. It's so strong too. I just think it's so cool that you can take some raw wool like this and then turn it into something that you can spin or weave or felt. Well, you can actually felt this stuff, but I just think that is just the coolest thing. We had a lot of fun doing it, so now my daughter and I are wanting to get a spinning wheel. It is something that's definitely going to take some practice. It came much more naturally to my daughter than it did to me, because there's moving the foot or the treadle with your foot and making sure that everything's going in the right direction, plus feeding in the wool. It's a thing. But anyway, I am very excited to get better at it and then to eventually make something with it. So that was a couple of days ago. And then yesterday we started work on getting the high tunnel all ready for planting. So the front and the back had blown off, and Dan and I put some new plastic on it. And today I'm actually going to be going down later and putting all of the strips on to hold the plastic. And then I will start working on the beds, and I'll take you along for that entire process as well until we get to the point where we're actually planting in the high tunnel, which is one of my favorite days actually in the spring, is when we get to start putting things into the high tunnel. And now today we get to pot up some more seedlings, which is kind of the story of my life this time of year. But right now I am going to pull the plastic back on all of my seedlings here. So we're still freezing at night, which is why I have that extra sheet of plastic over my seedlings. And then I also have 2 heaters in underneath, which I normally during the day I'll turn them off and set them on the top shelf so that I can water, take care of the seedlings, and not electrocute myself. I always get asked whenever I talk about potting up why I wouldn't just start my seeds in a larger container like this, why I start them like this and then transfer them into something larger. So I have an indoor grow room where I start the majority of my seeds. And because we live in a northern growing zone where we don't get to start to put our plants out in the garden until the very end of May, sometimes the beginning of June, I need to start my seedlings indoors where it is warm. I start upwards of 1,000 plants every year, so I just don't have the amount of space to have a larger container like this. These are the little paper pots that I make for potting my seedlings up. I don't have enough room to accommodate the number of plants that I need to start in a larger container like this. So for example, I can fit 50 seeds, 50 little baby plants in a tray like this, whereas when I plant them out in this, I can only fit 10 in this amount of space. So I just simply don't have the space to accommodate the number of seedlings that I need to start. By the time that I have to pot them up right around now, I can set it up in here so that it is warm enough for my seedlings to be able to handle being out here with just a little bit of extra protection with that plastic and the heaters down below. So that's the reason that I do it. I know that there's other gardeners that have different reasons for why they go about doing it that way, but this is the reason that I do. Even though I do have a little bit more space out here, the only things that I start in the larger containers like this are all of my squash and my cucumbers, anything that is fast growing that needs a lot of root space and where the plants don't like to have their roots disturbed, like squash. I will plant them out into a larger container like this. So this time of year, I'm still starting lots and lots of seeds, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 trays of 50 little soil blocks each. And I am starting plants in here that I don't need to pot up. If I was going to be starting anything that I was going to need to pot up, I would actually just start them out in the greenhouse in this size of container. So this tray is a good example. So this one is, what's this one? Red gem Salanova lettuce, red Aztec spinach, and Piso mustard greens. And then at the very end, I have a little bit of pak choi. And these can all stay in these little soil blocks until they go out into the garden. So there's going to be no need to pot these ones up. Oh, I do want to show you something very encouraging. You remember our very sad looking tomato seedlings from the other day. So this is only day 5, I think, since I potted these up, and they still aren't looking perfect, but they are looking significantly better than they were. And in another week, you won't even be able to tell that they were as stressed as they were. So I did share in my last video how to make these paper pots, but I'm going to do a blog post that will be coming out next week. And if you want to be notified about that, you can sign up for my newsletter. There's a link down below, where I'll give you some step-by-step instructions and probably something that you can print out on how to make these, because they are just fantastic. I love them. We make hundreds of them every year. Okay, so what we're going to do is pop off the cotyledons, the first leaves down here, and we'll dig way down into our pot and bury our seedling right down just about to the leaves, because new roots will grow off that stem and we'll have a really sturdy little plant by the time these go out into the garden. Oh, someone was asking in my last video about fertilizer, and I generally don't use a lot of fertilizer. Sometimes I will top dress my seedlings with this stuff. This is Gaia Green All-Purpose 444. So I'll just put a little sprinkle, usually around half a teaspoon or so for this size of container, into my soil if I feel like my seedlings need a little bit of a boost. So the ones that were back here that were really stressed, I did give those guys a little bit of a feeding, and some of the other seedlings too. But generally I don't usually find it necessary as long as I'm using good potting soil. I use the organic Sungrow potting soil. So there we go, cute little seedlings. So like I mentioned last time, once these have been watered, you don't want to move them around too much, so it's a good idea to put them in a tray like this so that you can just move the tray if you need to move them instead of moving the pots themselves, because they will tear fairly easily. I do take off my newspaper when I'm going to plant them out into the garden, and that isn't necessary. You can plant them right in to your garden with the newspaper because it will biodegrade. But because I don't know for sure what's in this paper, it is supposed to be plant-based dyes without lead or anything like that in them. But I would rather just take my seedlings out of them as soon as possible and stick them out into some fresh organic soil out in the garden. So weird, the germination on these cauliflower was spotty, but also the size of the seedlings themselves. As you can see here, we have some big ones and some little tiny ones in there. We're all uneven. So for the cauliflower themselves, I actually just put those into a slightly larger plastic cell like these. I have tons of these that I've been collecting over the years, and those seem to be a good size for these little tiny cauliflowers. I do the same with my broccoli and my cabbage. What else? And my kale as well. Actually, I can show you over here. So here's some little cabbages that I potted up into the larger cells, I don't know, about 4 or 5 days ago or so, and these will be able to stay in these until they go out into the garden. They may need a little bit of fertilizer if they start looking a little bit sad before they go out. With these paper pots, I do prefer to put the soil in dry into them, and then, let's see, can we get this little guy out here, and then moisten them once they're filled, just because, like I said, they're paper and they do get a little bit fragile when they get moistened. And like I mentioned last time too, your seedlings are going to look a little bit sad. They may even completely flop over and wilt when you pot them up, just because they go into a little bit of shock. But don't worry about that. Within a few hours, they will perk right back up again. Okay, there's our little mystery seedlings. It's still too cold to run a hose down here. The hoses are still freezing at night, so I have my little bucket that I just keep filled up. All right, friends, I am going to finish up this task, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to share with you some of the video footage that we took when Sherri was over teaching us how to spin, and then I'll be back with you in the kitchen when I'm done.
Whatever comes off of the combs is called worsted.
Okay.
Worsted is when all the fibers are aligned. And whatever comes off the carders is called woolen.
Oh.
And the woolen is when the fibers are like this.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so woolen, and we know traditionally that woolens were worn on the outside of the body.
Right.
Because when the fibers are like this, they're going to pick your skin.
Oh.
But they also create air pockets in the fiber. And
so that
they
keeps you warmer.
They insulate.
Right, okay.
Okay, so they act like a natural insulation. Whereas worsted clothing was always worn next to the skin because the fibers were aligned and they didn't scratch.
Oh.
And it was a smoother, more elegant garment. Actually, what people do is this is the one they're working with. Okay, they flip it up and down, up and down, up
Okay.
and down. We're going to make a mess with it because
That's
it's
fine.
got dirt in it.
Oh, don't worry about it.
But when I do it, I don't get all, I kind of actually work with this one. And as you see, the wool gets really static. So what I often do is I'll just get a spray bottle and I'll put water and a little bit of hair conditioner in it and spray it so that it doesn't do that.
It's not super static.
So now that's garbage.
Oh, by the way, everybody, this is my friend Sherri.
Hello. And then sometimes I comb from the sides as well.
You know, in all of the videos that I've watched, I didn't see anyone
Combing.
combing. Yeah.
Well, people usually just comb long wool. So you want to have, and that's garbage.
Okay.
So you actually have quite a bit of garbage on combs. But because you're producing a finer, well, in the end it'll be a fabric, right? You don't want any garbage in
Anything in there, right? Exactly.
And you could go again if you want to. I think that that's enough. So then I just loosen it up with my fingers so it's not so bunched down at the bottom. Shorter locks than mine.
Because you have
I actually have
Icelandic sheep. Is that what
I
you
have Gotland sheep,
Gotland.
and they are actually Viking bred. This is your staple. This is your length. So when you're, you have about, what is that, 3 inches?
Yeah, about 3.
You know when you're drafting on your spinning wheel or drafting for that if you pull more than 3 inches, you're going to break it out.
Right, okay.
Which is not a problem because you can just join it again. And that's why when I first pulled it off, I pulled too long, and so now I just have to be aware that I only have a 3-inch staple, right? So.
So you just go little
Bits at a time. You grab it like this, twist it and roll it, twist it and roll it, twist it and roll it, and then you make a little bun, like that, a little nest.
Perfect.
And there it is. So that's the deal.
That's pretty quick. Actually,
Yeah.
like that's really not.
No, it's amazing how much you can get done, and I've got I've got a basket of these. So these are mine.
They're so smooth and shiny looking.
That's from
really
my
beautiful.
guys.
Are all of yours white?
No, I
You
have
had gray
white,
ones,
silver,
too. Yeah.
black, gray, dark gray, and light gray. So now carding. Carding is, I'm going to sit in a chair. Can I move?
Yeah, here. I'll just move you.
Okay.
over.
You're just very gently letting the carders do the work, right?
Okay.
So you go like this with the carders, right? I got a little cabbage. This side again. So the cards, they kind of mash up the stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And you take it off your card.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Then you have it here, and you roll it up, and then you have what's called a roll lag. Okay.
Okay.
And so now all your fibers rolled into a roll, and you pull from here.
Ah,
So that's a carded bat.
that's beautiful.
Yeah. This is a Louette S17. It's the cheapest Louette you can buy. Cost me at the time $500, which is a lot, but not.
But no, I've been looking at spinning wheels.
When you're
That's
buying
not...
spinning wheels. And what I like about Louette products, I have a Louette carder too, is that there's no greasing, there's no tightening, there's no squeaking, they're made in Holland. They've got really good machined parts, like, and they're covered and sealed, all the bearings. And which is this.
on whichever one.
On whichever whirl, right?
Gotcha.
So,
okay. So is this going to be bigger or smaller?
yeah, this is chunkier
That's
wool,
chunkier.
medium, fine.
Okay.
It's a different wheel because I thought this would be my learner's wheel and then I'd graduate to something better. But I don't see a need for it. It plies really well too, and I'll show you what plying is. And I just always go clockwise to spin, and then I just join. So I just let them find each other. Look at that, happy little campers. Whoops. Romney and Gotland. Come on, guys, no fighting.
You had a fun day? Good.
So, and if it breaks, you just reintroduce them to each other, right?
So when you're doing it, do you always do it then like this?
No.
And then
I do all kinds of
just do all kinds
gauges.
of whatever it is you're looking to make, you make it accordingly.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll look up a pattern that I want to make, and then I find out what the gauge is, and then I spin up what I need, and then I knit. It's so great. I have it all there.
So great.
Because I was a knitter first, and I always had to buy all the wool that I wanted to knit with. And some friends of mine who were spinners were like, you really need to learn how to spin. I'm like, yeah, but then I won't have time to knit.
Right. Has that turned out to be the case?
No.
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 Do you sell what you make?
I do. I have. But lately, I have two new grandbabies, and I've just been making stuff for them. Mm-hmm. Don't be a perfectionist. Because what you're doing when you're learning how to spin is, like I said, it's like riding bicycle, right? So you got to think about your foot, and then you got to think about what your twist is doing, and your backdraft, and how long your staple is, and your speed of your bobbin. It's a lot to think about in the beginning. There you go. Yeah, she's pretty good with a treadle, actually.
Yeah, she'll figure it out.
You got too much here. A little bit too much. Slide. Up. Keep going. Stop. Stop letting the twist, but keep pedaling. Okay, and now let it in. See, once your whole body feels like it's like, oh God, I can't go any further. You gotta let it go in, right? Okay, here we go. There you go. Building twist. You got a lot of twist in there now. Let's get this out of here. Get that twist in. Right? Look at that.
That is amazing.
Isn't it?
So amazing. I love it.
It's like magic.
It is like magic.
It's magic. There it is. We got some wool. I should have brought a skein to show you, but I didn't think about it. Next time.
Look at that. How cool is that? I love it. All right, friends, I hope that you enjoyed that. I know we certainly did. It was so much fun, and she has offered to come again to give us another lesson. So we are going to order the same spinning wheel as she did, because like she said, even though it's considered a beginning or a beginner's wheel and is priced accordingly, it's one that she has chosen to continue to use, even though now she's really good at it. So we'll definitely let you know when that shows up. So now I want to talk to you about kombucha and our second fermentation with our kombucha. So the other day I took some of our ready-made kombucha out of our gallon jar and I put it into some bottles, and into those bottles I also added some fruit, and this is to give a little bit of extra sugar as well as flavoring to the bacteria for that second fermentation, which usually goes for about 3 to 4 days. I put those berries in, topped it off with the kombucha, lidded it, and sat it on the counter. And every day while it was doing its second fermentation, I did what's called burping, which is just to open the lid and let a little bit of those gases out so that it doesn't explode on your counter. So now we get to actually try some of our kombucha. So when you are going to drink kombucha, if you don't want to have the little bits that are floating around in the kombucha, which is just a natural part of the kombucha itself, you can use a little filter like we have here, and also because we have fruit in it, we want to filter out some of that fruit. So we're going to pop our lid, whoop, and pour a little bit of our kombucha. Ooh, berries are plugging it into our jar. The raspberry, isn't that beautiful? That's so good. Raspberry or blackberry kombucha is definitely my favorite. It's delicious. And super fizzy. Oh my goodness. So we also have a plain here as well, and into the plain I've added a couple of raisins. Someone suggested this to me many years ago. The raisins don't impart a flavor on the kombucha, but they do give a little bit of extra sugar to those bacteria to give you a little bit of extra fizz. So if you like the extra fizz, I recommend that you do that. So let's try the plain. That's good. So that is a little bit sweeter than I like it. So I'm going to leave this one, ooh, fizzy, sitting on the counter for a couple of more days just to allow those bacteria to eat up the sugars in the kombucha. I like it a little bit more vinegary, and so does Dan. The kids like a little bit sweeter, however, so I want to show you how we do the kombucha for them. This is our 2-gallon jug that we use that has a spigot on the bottom. So it's just doing its fermentation right now, and once it's ready to drink, I'll pull it to the top of the counter, or to the edge of the counter rather, so that we can just open this up and drink it right out of here. And this is before it's had a second fermentation, so it's a little bit sweeter and a little bit less fizzy, which is how my kids like it. We call that our never-ending kombucha, because once it gets down to about the halfway point, just below where it is now, I'll make another batch of kombucha in a gallon jar, and once it has cooled off, I'll add it straight to that, and then we can just continually be drinking out of it. And then for Dan and I, we will just fill up our bottles as we need more kombucha, and then just leave it to sit on the counter. And we kind of get into a routine where we always have kombucha at the place that we like it. So more vinegary for Dan and I, more sweet for the kids. So if you have not tried making your own kombucha yet, I highly recommend it. It is delicious. It's supposed to be really good for your gut. I can't attest to whether it is good for your gut or not, because I am not a dietitian, but I can say that I do really enjoy a nice cup of fizzy kombucha with ice in it on a nice hot summer day. I just wanted to share one more thing with you before I end today's video, and that is that I was a contributor to the Hillsider magazine, which is coming out. It's actually for sale right now, and it will be printed. It's a limited edition. It'll be printed in about 3 weeks, and I was very honored to be asked to contribute. It is a Canadian publication, although it's available all over the world. There's a digital version and a hard copy version as well. My contribution was all about safe canning and practices to make sure that your canned goods are safe and delicious. So if you're interested in checking that out, I'll put a link in the pinned comment and in the show notes below. Like I said, it is a limited edition, so it'll only be available for the next I think 2 to 3 weeks or so. And today is the 11th of April. So that is going to be it for today's video, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye.